It's the heart of October, so we are trying to watch as many spooky movies as we possibly can, but preferably movies that actually take place at the Halloween season. So today I'm going to be talking to you about 10 Halloween holiday movies that you might not be aware of. So what's going on, my friends? Welcome again to the Cobwebs channel. My name is Daniel. Happy Halloween, my absolute favorite time of year. And these movies for today's list are movies that actually take place around Halloween. They are about the Halloween season, so it's not just horror movies in general. And I am avoiding the big classics that you probably are already watching, like John Carpenter's Halloween, Trick or Treat, Hocus Pocus, Nightmare Before Christmas. I think you know exactly what movies that I'm talking about. And I didn't rank these movies, but I split them up into categories. So my first category is Halloween parties, and for that we're going to be talking about The Midnight Hour from 1985. Taking place in Pitchford Code, Massachusetts, which is a town with a history of witch burning, a bunch of teens conduct a ritual in a graveyard that accidentally unleashes witches, zombies, vampires, werewolves, and more upon their town. So this was actually a TV movie that did come out in the 80s, but please don't let that stop you because this is an awesome movie. It's like the ultimate Halloween film. It takes place in a town that is very obsessed with the Halloween season and really goes all out with decorations and festivities. At the beginning of the movie, our main character actually gives a presentation to his class all about the history of Halloween. Now, not all of the information that he shares is accurate, and a character later in the film actually calls Samhain Samhain.
The eve of Samhain. All Hallows Eve.
But we can forgive this stuff because the heart of this movie is so in the right place. It is so in love with the Halloween season, with so many different monsters unleashed on Halloween night during a big Halloween party that is so much fun to watch. The makeup on the zombies actually looks really good. You've got some good witchy elements as well, as an ancient witch from back in their witch burning days here in Massachusetts comes back to life because of this graveyard ritual. I mean, conducting a graveyard ritual on Halloween night is always a good idea. The movie's actually got a really fun cast, like LeVar Burton in an early role, Sherry Belafonte, who's Harry Belafonte's daughter, she's great here too. Dee Dee Pfeiffer is in this, who I really like from Vamp, that's another fun 80s horror movie. And I really like our main guy, played by Peter DeLuise, who's kind of nerdy and he's going for a girl who doesn't like him back, but there is a 1950s girl that comes to life along with all the zombies, this ghost girl, and they have this really adorable romance actually that really is a good emotional hook for the film, and the movie has an incredible soundtrack. I'm gonna wait till midnight. In fact, I think the soundtrack is the reason this movie's not easily available. It's hard to get on physical media. It's not officially available on streaming, but you can watch it here on YouTube in perfectly fine quality. So I highly recommend The Midnight Hour for this Halloween. My next category is decorations and pumpkins, and for that, we're going to be talking about The Curse of Bridge Hollow from 2022. An average family moves into Bridge Hollow, a town that puts heavy emphasis on Halloween and decorating, and annually puts on a Stingy Jack festival. When the daughter lights a mysterious lantern, the soul of Stingy Jack comes back. He brings all of the Halloween decorations to life and must claim a soul by midnight. So this is a straight to Netflix family movie starring Marlon Wayans as the dad, and it's really fun. How I would describe this movie is it's basically a Christmas family comedy, but for Halloween instead of Christmas. So the dad, played by Marlon Wayans, is basically a Grinch or a Scrooge character who's very all about science, doesn't believe in anything vaguely spiritual, and is kind of a Grinch about Halloween. He doesn't care about it, much to his daughter's chagrin. But through the movie, he's got to learn to accept and embrace the spirit of this festive season. And I really like that kind of movie being given to Halloween. But I said this town puts on a festival of Stingy Jack. What is that? Okay, so let's talk about the origin of jack-o'-lanterns. Now, the practice of carving vegetables does in general go back centuries, but one of the origins of the jack-o'-lantern comes from an Irish folktale of Stingy Jack. Jack was a selfish man who invited the devil to have a drink with him. Rather true to his name, Jack didn't want to pay for his drink and outwitted the devil to avoid it. When Jack died, he was neither allowed into heaven nor hell. The devil cursed him to roam the earth forever, with only a burning coal to light his way. He put the coal into a carved turnip and has been roaming the earth with it ever since. I love this old story of Halloween legend, and I love that this movie incorporates it, actual folklore around Halloween, because very few movies do, so I really embrace that. Honestly, the first time I saw this movie, I thought it was okay, because it is in general an okay family comedy. I do actually really like Marlon Wayans in here. He's very likable as the dad. He's got this daughter who's actually from Stranger Things. She's really fun in it. It's just got a good family message to it. But the more I watch it and I just kind of put it on in the background to just give some Halloween vibes, the more I just really embrace this movie, and I think it's just really fun. The next movie for this category is Black Pumpkin from 2020. On October 31st, two preteens in a small town accidentally awaken an evil that has laid dormant for decades. They are now forced to survive a terrifying Halloween night while being pursued by a monster known as Bloody Bobby. Okay, this October is actually getting kind of cold. I gotta put a flannel on real quick. Bear with me. Now, Black Pumpkin is a very small budget indie movie that I just recently checked out, and while it is not a great film, it is a movie where the filmmakers clearly had a lot of love for the genre and for Halloween. It doesn't look particularly cinematic. It doesn't really feel autumnal. I guess it's Halloween in California because it's just green as far as the eye can see. But a lot of its budget limitations are made up for by a lot of pretty likable actors. I particularly like Grayson Thorne Kilpatrick as Pork Chop, who is the main boy's friend, who feels like a real throwback to movies like The Monster Squad and such. He's actually a really fun character. The main kid has a beautiful sister, and her friends kind of make up our teen cannon fodder for this monster. But the monster in this, Bloody Bobby, he's clearly heavily influenced by Sam from Trick or Treat, but it is fun to get another Halloween monster who has the size of a child, and he actually has a very good design that I really enjoyed. He's a fairly threatening monster. Now, most of the kills are not great. The budget limitations fully show, but there is one standout kill involving a lawnmower, and if you got one really great kill, I'll give your slasher film a pass. It is low budget, but it's fun, its heart is in the right place, and it is a good movie for seeing a lot of Halloween decorations. Our next category is so important for the Halloween season. These are haunted house attractions, and the first film for this is Haunt from 2019. This is about a troubled young woman and her friends who seek out an extreme haunted house on Halloween night, and there they discover the lines between fantasy and reality are very blurred. So around this time period, there were a lot of movies about haunted house attractions and people trying to kill you inside of them. I mean, just the year before this, Hellfest came out in 2018. But Haunt is one of the most serious, dark, and intense of the bunch. The actual haunted house that they go through is really nothing like one you would experience in real life, where it's fun, fast-paced, things jumping out at you. But instead, it's very slow and quiet, and they feel very alone. There's a creeping dread in this haunted house, and especially a dread from the figures that work in there, who are very slow and quiet and wear very ominous masks. I love the killers in this movie because they all represent very typical aspects of Halloween. They didn't get super creative with the designs. They kept things very traditional, like a ghost, a witch, a devil, a vampire. And I liked how classic that was, and the masks were sufficiently creepy. But this movie really throws you for a loop when the masks come off. That's all I'm saying. And those parts get pretty darn scary. This is a scary movie, and it's really intense. That's what I really give it credit for. The performances are very strong. Where I think the movie loses a little bit is I kind of wanted some more answers from this movie than I got. You could say its ambiguity keeps things scarier, but it kind of introduces a culture and a world that doesn't totally make sense, and I wanted some more information about it, and the movie's not really interested in doing that for you. But I do think it is a darn good, intense Halloween horror movie for a night when you're not necessarily looking for a really fun time. You want to get scared. Okay, for this next one, sticking with haunted houses, I need to know, where are my cheesy 80s slasher movie fans? Because we're going to be talking about HauntedWeen from 1991. Okay, not 80s, but I mean, come on, this movie feels completely like an 80s slasher. So this film is about Eddie, who brutally murdered a little girl when he was a kid, and now as an adult, he is back, and he is stalking down some fraternity guys and sorority who are trying to put on a haunted house attraction in his childhood home. So this film was made in Kentucky, and most of the actors were actually students at Western Kentucky University, and it's really got that authentic, middle America, regionally made, cheesy, low-budget horror movie feel, and I think it's really fun. This movie is actually super entertaining despite its very low budget. A lot of that comes from the actors, who are not great, but they are entertaining and they do stand out. Like, we've got this main couple who have they're fighting throughout the film and on the verge of breaking up because he spends too much time with his fraternity friends, which I think is kind of a funny, like, tiny little meaningless conflict in the middle of this movie. But the main guy's fraternity bros, like his friends, are so funny. Like, you've got this one guy with this insanely thick Southern accent who is so goofy.
Oh man, I hate to wash my own car, much less somebody else's. Let's steal the car and sell it.
And he is just incredibly entertaining anytime he's on screen. You can call this movie so bad it's good. You know, I don't really like that term because I think if it's fun and it's entertaining, then it's good. And I think this movie succeeds at what it tries to do. But the haunted house attraction that they make within this killer's childhood home is actually pretty good. And it's really good at having a killer infiltrate this attraction and be able to kill people not just out in the open, but in front of a cheering audience and get away with it. Well, you know, does he get away with it in the end? You'll have to see the movie, but many times get away with killing people while people watch and cheer and they think it's all part of the show. It's a reflection on how we all love the dark, violent, and macabre this time of year, as long as we know it's fake. But is it always fake? Now that's the question this movie asks. I just think this movie is super fun and entertaining. It's got wacky kills and it's just never boring. And that's what you need from a cheesy little slasher movie like this. The next category is the harvest season, because that's when Halloween takes place, right? And that's why something that we really associate with Halloween is hay and cornfields and pumpkins and scarecrows. And that's where this movie comes in. Dark Harvest from 2023. In a small Midwestern town, a deadly annual ritual unfolds where the mythical nightmare Sawtooth Jack rises from the cornfield and challenges the town's teenage boys in a bloody battle for survival. So this film is based on a book, and I'd been looking forward to the adaptation of it for a long time, and then it just got quietly dumped on streaming last year. But I gotta say, it is a darn good movie, much because of just how good and intense a story this is. Now, it does take place in a small town in the 1960s, so it's really got some vibes that I really enjoy. But it is a perfect film for a dark small town where horrible darkness is hiding under the surface. And this is a town that will literally sacrifice up their teenage boys in an annual ritual because every year a living scarecrow, Sawtooth Jack, rises out of the cornfield and all the teenage boys are unleashed to try to kill it before midnight every Halloween night. And there are usually casualties because this is a killer scarecrow and it is pretty darn scary. I really like our lead characters. They're very likable, but very sympathetic because they're living in this just horrible town and just cannot wait to get out of it. The downside for this movie is I don't love the design of Sawtooth Jack. He is supposed to be a pumpkin-headed scarecrow, and he doesn't really look like that. He looks a little more generic and nondescript. And while the movie is gory, it's pretty much all CGI gore. So if you're a big fan of practical effects, practical gore, this movie's not really going to deliver that. So you really have to accept that and get over it in favor of enjoying a really dark, intense, good story. All on Halloween night. Our next category is very important for Halloween, and that is ghost hunting, trying to find a ghost at this time of year when the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest. And for that, we're going to be talking about the WNUF Halloween special from 2013. So this posits it is a live television broadcast from 1987, in which a local television personality leads a group of paranormal investigators into a haunted house to determine if the stories are true. You actually own this movie on Blu-ray from TerrorVision. I haven't owned a lot of these movies on this list yet, but this movie is available to stream on Shudder, and I highly recommend streaming it because it is so fun and it is so funny. Now, the movie was shot on vintage tape stock, and it's really a love letter to VHS and public access TV because it is supposed to be a very local TV station, very low grade, low budget, kind of a live TV in which you've got newscasters announcing the news, showing commercials. Yes, you do get commercials in this that the filmmakers made themselves. Very, very funny commercials. But the meat of the story is this guy who's taking paranormal investigators into a haunted house to determine if it's haunted or not. Now, this is a horror comedy that is so incredibly funny. I just laugh so much at it. And the movie's so committed to pretending to be an actual broadcast that you recorded onto a VHS tape, because it'll even fast forward through commercials sometimes, and you'll just get that old school VHS fast forward look until it gets back to their broadcast. And that stuff is just such a fun little touch. This is a really successful retro nostalgia kind of a movie, but it's really good at that, and it doesn't just feel like it's pandering because it's just so darn funny. You just can't fault it. But despite all of that, the laughs, the commercials, the silliness, the ghost stuff is not bad, and when you get to the end, it starts to get surprisingly dark. So I actually think it's a decent movie for a ghost hunting film. Not bad at all, super Halloween-y, and I mean, this is probably one of the best things for you to watch on Halloween night, and just pretend you're watching an old school live Halloween broadcast. Our next category is most important for the kids, and that is trick-or-treating. And for that, we're going to talk about Satan's Little Helper from 2004. So this is about a little boy who is obsessed with a video game called Satan's Little Helper. And when he meets a serial killer dressed in a Satan costume, he assumes that that is the Satan from his game, and he's going to run around with this guy causing havoc, playing the video game in real life. Now, if you're hearing this and you're just like, that sounds like the craziest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, the movie is pretty darn insane. So this movie was directed by Jeff Lieberman, who also made Just Before Dawn, which is an incredible 80s slasher film. Satan's Little Helper is not an incredible film. It is insane, ridiculous. It seems to exist in some kind of parallel universe where anything about this child would be acceptable. I mean, this kid is incredibly annoying. He has absolutely no sense of right and wrong or any common sense whatsoever. Like, a kid his age should know a video game is a video game. It's not real. But he fully believes in Satan and wants to serve him. It's so bizarre, and his parents don't really do anything about it. Now, his sister and her boyfriend are pretty big characters in this as well. She's played by Catherine Winnick, who she's pretty. She's pretty. And they are actually likable characters that you want to see succeed. In fact, her boyfriend in particular has a very sympathetic backstory, and they kind of save this movie for me in many ways, but I do really like the design of the Satan killer. I like the atmosphere of the movie. I've heard a lot of reviews say this movie is just super low production value. It is low budget for sure, but it takes place in a small coastal, looks like New England kind of a town during Halloween. So that's got all the atmosphere I need. I mean, the movie does not need to be expensive. And the other thing I have to tell you about it is it is mean. This is a mean movie. It is not a typical slasher film that just goes after like horny teenagers and like, who cares? No, it goes after like most movies wouldn't do the things this movie does. And it's kind of shocking and off-putting. Something that even involves a cat that I don't like. Wish it wasn't in the movie. If you don't want to see anything happen to a cat, even if it's completely fake, you don't want to watch this movie. But I actually think it's fun and entertaining in a sick, twisted, weirdo kind of a way. My next category kind of goes back to the harvest season, and this is hay rides. And my pick for this is FleshEater from 1988. So this is about a group of dopey teens who take a hayride out into the woods. They park for a while, drink, make out, you know the drill. But one guy digs up a body, and that body is a zombie. And this zombie now goes around attacking people, biting people, and spreading his infection all over the town to an apocalyptic level. So this film stars and was directed by Bill Hinsman, who was the original zombie in the graveyard in Night of the Living Dead. Yeah, the Night of the Living Dead remake was getting made without him, and he decided, I'm gonna make my own zombie movie, and he made FleshEater. And the movie is low budget, ridiculous, not traditionally good for sure, but if you do like autumn Halloween kind of vibes, this movie really has it. It takes place in Halloween. I like all the hayride, going out into the woods. That stuff is all fun. When the movie eventually gets back to the town, you've got a lot more Halloween content with kids getting ready for trick-or-treating.
You're supposed to say trick or treat.
You've got a Halloween party, but the movie is like not good, okay? The actors are really bad, and that's coming from me. I'm pretty forgiving with actors, but the actors are horrible in this movie. The dialogue, I mean, I don't even know if it's their fault, because the dialogue is so bad. At times, it doesn't even feel like the characters are really talking to each other, like they're all just talking.
Did you see the way they checked out her ass when she walked by? What do you expect? They're only human. Yeah, but they're our boyfriends.
But the zombie stuff rules, okay? It gets so big. Like, the movie starts out very small, just people out in the woods, spreads all over the town. It is an apocalyptic kind of a scenario. I'm just impressed at how this movie grows and grows. It is very fun, very entertaining. It is a zombie film with Halloween atmosphere to spare. My last category, and this is a very important one, is childhood wonder. I love Halloween. I support anybody loving Halloween, but I do think first and foremost, Halloween is for kids. I'm very nostalgic about Halloween as a child. My dad in particular made it very special to me, and I've carried that with me my whole life. I intend to make it very special for my kid as well. And my movie for that is The Lady in White from 1988. Taking place in 1962, a young boy named Frank is locked in his school closet during Halloween. There he witnesses the ghost of a young girl and the man who murdered her years ago. Afterwards, he finds himself stalked by this killer and trying to solve the mystery of her and the Lady in White, a ghost that haunts their town. This is a movie I've had a complicated history with. The first time I saw it years ago, I absolutely loved the atmosphere of it, but I struggled with the movie as a whole. Now, the atmosphere is incredible. I mean, it has got autumn, Halloween aesthetic, very vintage aesthetic taking place in the 1960s in this small, very quaint little town. This movie is the absolute best kind of atmosphere that I want to see in a Halloween film. It's perfect. I love it so much. Lucas Haas is fantastic as the main kid in this movie. It's probably like one of the great child performances, and so many great supporting performances around them too. This town feels so authentic. The people feel so real. But I did struggle with the movie before because, one, it's got a lot of stuff going on. It is a busy movie. It's about 2 hours long. There's a lot packed in here. And it's very dark. And I think I was just thrown off by how dark it is. It is a movie about childhood, but for adults. Like, I don't think many kids would really appreciate this or understand it or even could handle it, frankly. It is a very dark film. In fact, there is one thing that happens towards the end of the movie involving one character. I'm not going to spoil what it is, but it is so cruel, and I think so unnecessarily cruel, that like it kind of sickens me, and it does like provoke quite a reaction in me. So I mean, I guess I give credit for that, but I think for the kind of movie this is, it goes too dark. So I think this is a movie for grown-ups, despite the fact that it is about childhood and childhood wonder in a very nostalgic kind of a way. But I rewatched it leading up to this, and I think it's a very good movie. It is very emotionally investing. It is powerful in some ways. It has a lot of horror content involving ghosts and serial killers. The effects definitely don't hold up. They don't really go for practical effects that age well. They go for stuff that, well, didn't age quite well, but it's definitely intense towards the end. It doesn't all take place on Halloween. It takes place over a long period of time, but it pretty much always feels very autumnal, and the Halloween content is perfect. So that's my list, but I want to know yours. Let me know more Halloween movies to check out down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, check out this video I made last year on the exact same topic, 10 Halloween movies you might not have seen, though those are all different picks. And if you did enjoy this, consider hitting the subscribe button because I've got a lot of other Halloween videos on the way. Thank you so much. Don't forget to enjoy yourself this very special season, and I will see you next time.